The new season of Call of Duty Warzone and Modern Warfare 3 is here, and it's looking like a banger. This will be the last season before Black Ops 6, and Modern Warfare 3 is going out strong. The new weapons, the cast-off LSW LMG, and the Deter 3006 look great, the Battle Pass looks great, and of course the Haunting event for Halloween is coming this season too. So to fully enjoy this new season of Warzone and Modern Warfare 3, I thought I'd share with you the updated best graphic settings. And that starts with on-demand texture streaming. If you're going for the most competitive settings, then I would recommend putting this on minimal. This ensures that you get the absolutely best latency possible, along with minimizing some rendering and things like that, so it's possible you'll get fewer bugs, and you may even get better frames per second in some situations. But if you just want the game to look its absolute best, then put this on optimized. As always, for world motion blur, weapon motion blur, and film grain, switch these all off. They just create a little bit of visual noise that we don't really need. And then for depth of field, switch this off as well. This ensures that when you aim in, you don't get that blurring effect around your crosshairs. So it just increases your chances of seeing enemies that aren't directly where you're aiming. But just before we get into the rest of the settings, are you looking to unlock Modern Warfare 3 camos like Interstellar and Borealis completely legit? Or are you even wanting to grab the best schematics, maybe some bot lobbies, or instant delivery of accounts? Be sure to check out Mitch Cactus. They're the biggest and most reliable sellers with loads of new offerings for Modern Warfare 3. This includes newly offered cheap COD points at a discount of over 60%, and with over 10,000 verified views on Trustpilot, Mitch Cactus is the go-to for all things Call of Duty. And you can use code SPRING for 5% off. Now back to the settings. For Fidelity FX CAS, this is a software tool built in to try and make the images look a little bit sharper. Now on some consoles, on some monitors, that's not always going to be a problem. So you may think you can just switch this off, which is absolutely no problem at all. On newer gen consoles, I do find Warzone and Modern Warfare 3 to be a tiny bit blurry in some circumstances. I like to switch my Fidelity FX CAS on and actually turn the strength up to 90. This though is going to be one of those things that you just have to play around with to get your perfect setting here. For 120Hz refresh rate, put this on. This of course ensures that we can play at 120 frames per second, but you do need the latest generation of console to play this, as well as a monitor that will suit it as well. In addition to this, there are some settings on the console that may influence this as well. So if we head over to settings on the Xbox, and then go over to TV and display settings, you have to make sure you're not playing in 4K, otherwise you're not going to be able to have a refresh rate of 120 Hz. You're going to be pushed down to 60. Now personally I think 1440p is just fine, and I happily trade that for 120 frames per second. In addition, if you're still struggling to get this on, head over to video modes, and then here you want to disable some of these things, particularly the allow 4K and the allow HDR10. And this is going to be relevant for another setting we're going to get into in a minute. Lastly, you also want to put on variable refresh rate and switch this on. As it mentions on the right hand side, it ensures that you don't get screen stuttering or tearing, and that's really important to have that fluid gameplay. Okay, now for field of view, there may be the temptation to just switch this all the way up to 120, as it will allow you to see the largest range around you as possible. But bear in mind, as you turn up the FOV, you're essentially turning down the frames per second. And to be honest, there's a certain limit with this, because the higher you actually have that FOV, not only does frames per second go down, but it can be harder to see enemies at a long range. So you get sort of diminishing returns at that point. So 115 I would recommend is the absolute max, and then with a minimum around 100. For camera movements, put this on least, which is 50%. For brightness, this comes back to the HDR setting we were just talking about. So on your console, whether you're on Xbox or PlayStation, go into the console settings and switch this off, because then on the game, we have free reign of many of these settings, and brightness is one of them. I recommend switching this up to 65, and then for safe area, minimize this as much as possible. And then we want to head over to interface. Many of these settings here are kind of personal preference, but I do recommend going to color customization, going down to color filter settings, putting this on filter 2, and then turning the intensity all the way up to 100. This ensures that you're going to get that nice poppy saturated look. And if you haven't already, please put your minimap shape on square. It shows about 25% more of the area than it does when it's a circle. So they're all the best graphic settings for this season. Hopefully they do make your game look a lot better, whether you're on Urzikstan, Rebirth Island, Fortune's Keep, Vondel, or you're just popping in to play zombies. If you do want to ensure that the rest of your settings are on point, then join me over in this video where I go over the best controller settings for this season as well.